flag. And thank you everybody for being here today. Once again, I want to express my sincere condolences to the families and friends who have lost loved ones in the community of McCreary. This is no doubt an incredibly trying and difficult time for all. A team of homicide investigators from the Manitoba RCMP Major Crime Services, as well as forensic experts, have been in McCreary over the past week to determine what occurred the early morning hours of August 16th, 2024. What I will be sharing is an absolute horrific act of intimate partner violence. This is the second act of such violence with multiple homicides within the province in the past 6 months, with 1 adult and 4 children killed earlier in February of this year. I want to warn everybody that the events I will be detailing will not be easy to hear and may be troubling and traumatic for many. Based on the evidence collected at multiple crime scenes and through witness statements, we now have an understanding of what occurred in McCreary on the morning of August 16th, 2024, and can provide an updated timeline. We believe this event began on August 16th, 2024 at approximately 1:20 a.m. when Marlon Glover, a 41-year-old male, forcefully entered the residence of a 37-year-old female. The entry was targeted, and the male and female were known to each other through a previous relationship. The 37-year-old female was eventually able to escape and hid in a nearby wooded area. The 41-year-old male then left the residence and went to a nearby home, knowing it belonged to relatives of the female, who was now in hiding. He then killed the 66-year-old female, a 65-year-old male, and 35-year-old male found in the residence. These were the parents and brother of the female. He left the residence in his vehicle and stopped on the side of the road of 84 West and died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. As we previously shared, the Manitoba RCMP were notified at approximately 10:10 a.m. of the deceased male on Road 84 West in the arm of McCreary. This was the first call alerting the RCMP to the events that began earlier that morning. At 10:40, while officers were on scene, a second call was received requesting a check on well-being of the 37-year-old female. Officers attended her residence and were unable to locate her. This led the officers to a nearby residence where they found the body of the 3 victims. At approximately 12:40, the female was safely located and taken to hospital as a precaution. We can confirm that on November 24th, 2023, the RCMP served the 41-year-old male with a production order signed by a judge and seized 2 firearms, ammunition, and his possession and acquisition license. These items were not returned prior to the homicides and remain in the RCMP's custody. As I've noted, we're also aware that a firearm was used in this senseless act of violence. This is an aspect that still remains under investigation. There are many people who are grieving and lost a loved one, and today I express my condolences to them. The survivor and family is going through an unimaginable loss and has asked everybody to respect their privacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I'll just provide those remarks in French, and then there'll be a small time frame for any questions for Staff Sergeant Sherring. Encore une fois, je tiens à exprimer mes sincères condoléances aux familles et aux amis qui ont perdu des êtres chers, ainsi que la communauté de McCreary. Il s'agit sans aucun doute d'une période extrêmement difficile pour tous. Une équipe d'enquêteurs sur les homicides des services des crimes majeurs de la GSA au Manitoba, ainsi que des experts médicaux légaux, se sont rendus à McCreary au cours de la dernière semaine pour déterminer ce qui s'est passé tôt le matin le 16 août 2024. Je vais vous parler d'un acte absolument horrible de violence conjugale. Il s'agit du deuxième acte de violence conjugale ayant comme issue un homicide multiple qui se produit dans notre province en un peu plus de 6 mois. 4 enfants et un adulte ont été tués en février de cette année. Je tiens à prévenir tout le monde que les événements que je vais décrire ne seront pas faciles à attendre et pourraient être très troublants et traumatisants pour de nombreuses personnes. En nous fondant sur les preuves recueillies sur les multiples scènes et dans les déclarations des témoins, nous comprenons maintenant ce qui s'est passé à McCreary le matin du 16 août 2024 et pouvons faire le point sur la chronologie. L'événement aura débuté le 16 août 2024 à environ 1h20 du matin, lorsque Marlon Glover, un homme de 41 ans, sera entré de force dans la résidence d'une jeune femme de 37 ans. Cette entrée forcée a été ciblée car l'homme et la femme étaient connus l'un de l'autre en raison d'une relation antérieure. La femme de 37 ans a finalement pu s'échapper et se cacher dans un secteur boisé situé à proximité. L'homme de 41 ans a ensuite quitté la résidence initiale et s'est rendu dans une résidence située à proximité, sachant qu'elle appartenait à des proches de la femme partie se cacher. Il a ensuite tué une femme de 70 ans, un homme de 65 ans et un homme de 35 ans, soit les parents et le frère de la femme. Il a quitté la résidence à bord de son véhicule, s'est immobilisé sur le côté de la route 84 Ouest et a succombé à une blessure par balle qui était lui-même infligée. Comme nous l'avons déjà mentionné, la GRC au Manitoba a été informée dans le cadre d'un appel à environ 10h10 de la présence d'un homme décédé sur la route 84 Ouest dans la mer de McCreary. C'est le premier appel qui a servi à alerter la GRC des événements qui ont commencé plus tôt ce matin-là. À 10h40, alors que les agents se trouvaient sur les lieux, un deuxième appel a été fait dans lequel l'appelant demandait une vérification du bien-être d'une femme de 37 ans. Les policiers se sont rendus à sa résidence, mais la femme n'a pas été trouvée. Toutefois, les policiers ont trouvé les corps de 3 victimes à la deuxième résidence. Vers 12h40, la femme a été retrouvée en toute sécurité et transportée à l'hôpital par mesure de précaution. Nous pouvons confirmer que le 24 novembre 2023, la GRC a signifié à l'homme de 41 ans une ordonnance de protection signée par un juge et a saisi 2 armes à feu, des munitions et son permis de possession et d'accusation. Ces articles n'ont pas été retournés avant les homicides et demeurent sous la garde de la GRC. Comme je l'ai dit, nous savons aussi qu'une arme à feu a été utilisée dans cet acte de violence insensé. C'est un aspect qui fait toujours l'objet d'une enquête. Beaucoup de gens pleurent la perte d'un être cher aujourd'hui et j'offre une fois de plus mes condoléances à tous ceux qui souffrent. La survivante et sa famille vivent une perte inimaginable et ont demandé à tous de respecter leur vie privée. Merci. I'll now open up the podium for Staff Sergeant Sherring if there are any questions. Richard?
Is the survivor the same person that had a protection order against the deceased?
Yes, she is.
People might be asking, what can be done to, you mentioned this is not the first domestic incident this year on deaths. What more can be done so that protection orders are followed, orders to surrender firearms are followed? Sometimes people don't follow.
Yeah, well, as I indicated like in this case, 2 firearms were seized on when the protection order was served. Unfortunately, we were unaware of any additional firearms. We were made aware of the 2 which were seized at that time. We don't have any control over that. But in regards to how do we get people to follow these protection orders, I guess it comes down to everybody working together. And if there's a situation where there is intimate partner violence and a protection order is in place, if you're aware that these things are in place and people are aware that people are breaching these orders, to call the police. We can't act or help if we're not made aware of the situations ongoing.
So at this point, we haven't confirmed where this firearm came from, whether it was one that he had hidden away in his possession or if it was from someone else. At this point, you can't say for certain.
Right, and that's something that we're still looking into, yeah.
With the 3 victims, they also had that gunshot.
Yes, they did.
Sorry, you mentioned when the guns were seized, so to, I guess, the license, was there any other, I take it that there was no firearms licenses to this individual, there was no other licenses to this person? Or a firearm, like, there's no other, still on record?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yes, yeah. Unfortunately, there is no other way for us to be aware of firearms issued to people at this time.
And since November, did the woman in this situation ever reach out to police that Marlon had been bothering her?
There was additional calls for service that the members did respond to and dealt with appropriately.
Do you know how many times?
I don't know off the top of my head, no.
Did Glover ever breach the protection order?
As I stated, there were calls for service, and the police did respond and dealt with those calls for service appropriately. Without getting into the detail of what those calls actually were, which I'm not prepared to do here today, that's all I can say.
There weren't any charges laid for those?
I can't speak on that right now.
So the surviving victim, she ran off into the woods. I mean, do you know how long she remained out in the wooded area?
So the incident happened shortly after 1 a.m. and she was located by police at 12:40, so about 11 hours.
So she was located by police in a wooded area.
Yeah, in the area around her residence. Yeah.
I mean, without getting too into the specifics, I mean, what else do you think that was like, being out in the woods for 11 hours in this situation?
I can only imagine it must have been terrifying for her after the ordeal that she had endured prior to escaping and hiding. I can expect that she was terrified at that time.
So, and just so I'm clear on, so RCMP believe Glover arrived at 1:20 a.m. Do you have an idea of when Glover was able to flee from her residence? Was it shortly after 1:20, or is there?
Yeah, I don't know. It was a short time later, yes. Exact times I'm not sure of.
Is the RCMP going to be involved going forward in the community, taking steps to repair, or are we going to see RCMP in the community going forward while the investigation continues?
So obviously there are RCMP in McCreary and in St. Rose. Those members will remain there and will continue to attend calls for service. From the major crime stance, like we have some work that we need to finish up on our own. We may be going back to do some follow-up in the community as things progress.
What impact would this have on the officers that first responded to the scene? Because they were just expecting to find a woman maybe in this home, and instead they come across the 3 bodies.
It's part of the job going to calls for this. Our main focus is public safety, and that's what the members were focusing on. Just excuse me for a second. On the initial attendance was on the safety and well-being of the public.
Sorry, I'm going to re-ask something because I'm just not my apologies. You said there were calls for service in relation to the protection. I guess I'll ask it straight up. Did the individual who, the suspect, or what you call him, did he violate the protection order? Was he within 100 yards? Did he do something that breached the protection?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the details of those calls here today. Like I've expressed, there was calls for service. The members attended and they dealt with those calls for service appropriately under the circumstances of those calls.
Calls for service were related to the protection order.
Correct, yes.
And sorry, just to be clear, considering the individual died of a wound, I mean, RCMP have recovered the firearm blade that had been used, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
In for processing, that sort of thing at this point?
Correct, yes.
And sorry to be clear, there's just one. It's the same. Self-inflicted is the same.
That's correct, yes. In order to ensure her wishes, we will not be identifying her, no, not today. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thank you everyone. That concludes the press conference.